Hi, and welcome. I'm Sharmen Kimbrough, and I want to take just a few minutes today to talk about something that's not actually new, but seems to be gaining a new label, and that is Narcissistic Victim Syndrome. And to set the stage, I want to talk just for a few minutes about narcissism first, and then we'll talk about the victims. Narcissism has become such a buzzword lately. It's really used to describe someone who is oppressive. They are self-absorbed, self-serving, proud, lack empathy. There's a number of other adjectives used to describe a narcissist. But bigger picture is it's someone who is so oppressive and cruel that living with them, you lose a sense of yourself. You lose who you are. You are consumed by them. In so many cases, a narcissist will tell you how to think and what you feel and how to be, and imply that everything you do think or feel or behave is stupid or foolish or ignorant or less than, because it doesn't match with what they want or what their agenda is, or just it's not serving them in some way that they want it to. And basically it boils down to a person who is so proud and unable to do the work that needs to be done in a relationship for it to even have footing to be built upon, for it even to have room to grow. The other person in the relationship with a narcissist has no room whatsoever in which to be herself, or to think for herself, or to have her own opinions, or even her own hurts. So that's what a narcissist is like. Now, when we get to talking about narcissistic victim syndrome, what we're talking about is anyone who has lived any length of time whatsoever under the oppression of someone who matches these qualities. And it can be any spectrum. It can be outright grandiosity, or it can be just a very subversive, insidious, quiet, subtle way of telling you you are not good enough, and that how you think or feel or behave means nothing. Anywhere on that spectrum, the results to you are the same. It brings trauma. It brings emotional trauma, because you're not created to be consumed by someone else. You are created to have your own thoughts and opinions and personality and desires and likes and dislikes and all of that. You are created to have your own. And when you constantly have someone telling you that none of that means anything or holds any value or is important or is worth looking at, worth using in the relationship, everything you bring to the table is stomped on. It creates in you just this emotional disconnect. Your emotional, biophysical, emotional response is to isolate, to run and hide, to crawl in a hole. And eventually that's what you feel like you have crawled into a hole where you are alone. So talking about the trauma that comes with living under this kind of oppression, what I'm seeing in my practice, I would say probably 99% of the people I work with are really, all of their issues stem from just living under this kind of oppression and not having had any footing with how to confront it. And so if you need a label to help you put into context what you're feeling, the label is narcissistic victim syndrome or narcissistic abuse syndrome. How it's manifested in your life is normal symptoms of trauma, which are fear, anxiety, depression, eating disorders, sleeping disorders, flashbacks, all of those sorts of issues that come out of just living in high stress all of the time. And that high stress is because of trying to meet the demands of this narcissist all of the time, at the same time being told, in essence, you will never meet those demands. One of the things that comes out of this is also suicidal tendencies, suicidal thoughts, and oftentimes the victim, the one being abused, takes on the characteristics that the accuser has accused them of, like it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So, for example, if you have someone who is constantly telling you that you're cheating on him, and he's constantly checking your phone and accusing every conversation of being unfaithful to him, eventually, to shut him up, or just to help yourself feel better, you're going to have an affair. You're going to lead yourself into conversations with other men where it is not appropriate, just to shut him up, because it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. So a lot of times what I see in my office is women who actually feel like abusers themselves at this point, or feel any of these characteristics that their husbands or significant others have dumped on them for years. And so we have to untangle all of that chaos and try to help them get some footing with just knowing who they are and being able to stand on that again. So, bigger picture, the end result of someone who lives under this kind of oppression for so many years, what they notice the most is, underneath all of the fear, anxiety, depression, all of that, they feel absolutely alone and unable to connect, and have a very limited sense of hope for the future, hope for a future connection, hope for the marriage even. They're done. They're really, really done. They have nothing left to give, because they've spent so many years trying to give, only to have the standard raised a little higher, or to have everything they've done or been or said discounted. So that's what we're talking about when we're looking at narcissistic victim syndrome. And before I leave today, there is an activity that I'd like you to do just to help you start to get some footing on being able to heal from this, if you are a person who has had to live under the oppression of someone who is just strong and powerful and has no desire to protect your heart. The activity is this. I want you to write down every way that you feel you've been harmed over the last however many years it's been with this person. I want you to get into a quiet place where you don't have to be afraid of anyone looking over your shoulder. You don't ever have to share any of this with anyone. I just want you to see on paper all the ways you feel you've been harmed. And I want you to totally tune out every other voice. I don't care what your pastor says. I don't care what your family says. I don't care what your spouse says. The important part is, what do you believe? How do you feel you have been harmed? It doesn't matter how little you might have been told it is, how insignificant, whatever. Write it all down. Be as specific as possible. I'm sure when you start writing, more and more instances will come to mind. Just write them all out. And the therapeutic process of that is that it helps you to process it in the first place. It affirms that you really have been hurt in these ways. And it gives you just a baseline from which to start finding some ways to heal, some ways to set some boundaries, some ways to just acknowledge the pain you're feeling and to grieve it so that you can move on. It's a simple activity. Someday if you sit down with a therapist or a counselor, that would be a helpful thing to have done, so that you have just some idea of what you're working with when you sit down with a counselor. And the next step, if you're really looking for some healing, is to have someone walk alongside you who can help you just untangle this chaos in your own heart, help you to see your way through this, help you to just think more rightly and tune out those voices that are harming you, so that you can just be open to finding your own core sense of self again. You can reach us here at the Marriage Recovery Center. Find our website at marriagerecoverycenter.com, and I'll also put the contact information here for you as well. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks for taking a few minutes of your time today. I hope that I've been helpful and hopeful. Hope you have a good day.